All right, so we were talking about exploitative marketing and the idea of incomplete cognitive development. So now we're going to use a couple of segments here to explore this idea of cognitive development. The theory of cognitive development was proposed by Piaget, a very famous French psychologist. Piaget first proposed these stages. Now, the sensory motor stage is listed here. Notice it says 0 to 2. What this means is this approximate age range in which kids are in this stage. And we're talking about a stage theory. What we mean is that they're moving through these stages in a predictable fashion and sequentially, right? So the first ones being sensory motor. And 0 to 2 means from birth until they reach 2 years old. That's the approximate age range, till they reach 2 years old, not the end of 2 years old. Okay. And this stage is very aptly named because what is going on here is that they're learning, the main thing they're learning is a coordination of sensory input information into the brain and motor output out. So sensory information coming into the brain and then the motor output controlling the muscles coming back out. Sensory motor stage. Now, each of the stages we're going to be looking at has limitations that are perfectly normal, okay? Oftentimes very cute, but perfectly normal. And so you see a couple of them listed here. The first one is a lack of object permanence. Now, that's not generally all the way through this stage, but definitely through the first part of it. So it takes a while for babies to learn this idea of object permanence. What does this mean? Well, if you hold an attractive toy, let's say in front of a 3-month-old baby, if it's really an attractive toy, it will attract their attention, right? There will be eye contact. It'll follow it, the toy with its eyes. He or she might even reach for it, but if you put it behind your back, everything stops, right? Nothing. No reaction from them. They're off on whatever's next. In other words, it does not exist anymore for them. And as long as they can't see it, it doesn't exist anymore in their mind. Okay? Now, if you do that when they're about 2 years old, okay, by the time that they're that old, they should have develop the idea of object permanence. They will typically then crawl around you looking for it because they know it's still there, right? Scale errors are a very cute error that characterizes this stage. At the age of about 1, when children start to walk, we can actually witness evidence of these scale errors. And this is defined as the inability to understand the difference in function between a real object and a miniature replica. So to study this, first we would do something like this. We'd have kids playing a playground. You know those cars little cars that they can climb in and sit down in? They're kind of open on the bottom so they can move their feet on the sidewalk and move the car around that way, navigate it. Okay, so let's say we take them to play on a playground where they have a little car like that they ride in, a slide they go down, and a chair that they sit in. Now next, they are put in a room with the miniature replicas of these objects. And in this stage, they repeatedly try to get into the car, sit in the chair, slide down the slide, repeatedly. Very cute. There's another cute error that can tend to show when they begin dressing themselves. It's called the t-shirt error because they often tend to put their shirts on backwards. They do this more than what we would expect by chance, significantly more than 50% of the time. And the reason for this is a reasoning, but it's a faulty reasoning. And the reasoning is that they tend to hold it up with the front of the shirt facing their stomachs. So they hold it up with the front of the shirt facing their stomachs. Okay. Usually, kids outgrow scale errors and t-shirt errors shortly after they enter into this pre-operational stage, and they gain object permanence even before that usually. Okay, but this stage, this next one, has its own interesting limitations. So this next one is called the pre-operational period. The age range here, the approximate age range, is the time they reach the age of 2 up until the time they reach the age of 7. And what is going on here is that they are developing symbolic thought. And what I mean by symbolic thought is working with symbols in their minds, right? So they're playing with language. At some point, they're going to start playing with numbers, right? And if you think about it, letters and words and numbers, these are all symbols. So they're developing symbolic thought. There are some limitations, though, and the first one is irreversibility. This means they are unable to simply reverse their thoughts. That will come later. So let's say that they've learned some math and they're in this stage, and you ask them, what is 8 minus 5? Now, oftentimes, they may or may not, but oftentimes they will count on their fingers. So they might do something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 6, 7, 8. And then they'll go minus 5. Take away 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. The answer is 3. Now, if you ask them then right away, well, what is 5 plus 3? They don't just say, oh, of course, it's 8. I just did that. They can't just reverse it in their mind. Instead, they have to start all over and consider it as a new problem. So if they're doing, working it out on their fingers, they're going to start that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 6, 7, 8, counting them all. So another interesting limitation in this stage is called centration. This is the limitation is that they can only concentrate on one thing at a time. So you can really confuse kids at this stage. If you ask them something that requires them to think of more than one thing at a time. For instance, you might ask a kid in this stage, are there more kids or boys? If they have a co-ed class. Are there more kids or boys in your class? And this will really confuse them in this stage if they have not yet developed centration, and usually they haven't. Okay. Not only are you asking them to think about two different things, but you're asking them to think about the two things that are in different levels of a hierarchy, right? All the kids or a sampling of the kids, a category of the kids. All right, now the next one is egocentrism. This is a limitation where they can only see things from their own point of view. They are only able to see things from their own point of view. Okay, very typical in this age range that they have this. Egocentrism is usually outgrown by about 5 years of age, give or take. Okay, but certainly through most of the stage, we see this. So this is characteristic of the stage, egocentrism. Okay, now if there's, for instance, information that they know that other people don't know, they tend to assume other people know it because they know it. Everybody else must. Let me give you an interesting example in another scenario of egocentrism, because it can really be cute in kids. So I lost my grandmother and I flew home. It was very sad. She was a wonderful lady. I miss her terribly. And I flew home after her celebration of life ceremony. Everybody met at my sister's place, and that's where I was staying. So I was staying in a guest room there. And there are a lot of people, and at one point I was just kind of overwhelmed with people talking about memories of my wonderful grandmother and sharing my own, and on the brink of tears, and just wanted to get away from people. So I quietly retired to my room. Well, my little niece noticed that I was gone and she went and asked her mom why. And her mom said, "Oh, Aunt Linda's just in her bedroom because she just needed a break. She's really missing Grandma and she's feeling bad. She just needed a break." Well, the next thing I know, I'm lying on the bed in the bedroom and there's a knock on the door. And of course, my first thought was, oh, I didn't want to be around people, right? But then I noticed that the knock was coming from way down low on the door. And I went and opened it, and my little niece hands me her teddy bear. And she says, "This will help." Of course it'll help. It helps her. It will help somebody else, right? Egocentrism. So like I said, really, really cute in little kids. Not so cute if they carry that into adulthood, though, right? Okay, so in our next segment, we're going to cover the third and fourth stages of cognitive development.